Complete College America is a bold national advocate for dramatically increasing college completion rates and closing institutional performance gaps. And that's by working with partners such as SUNY, state systems, and institutions to scale highly effective and structural reforms and promote policies that improve student success. Now, the reason why CCA exists is because we believe that higher education has a choice to either continue to reflect the racial, social, and economic injustice in our society, or reimagine those systems to be engines of equity, prosperity, and hope. And so no one better to join us today than CCA fellow and Donna Linderman from SUNY. Now, one thing I will say about Complete College America, we are on all the socials. So if you are on X, if you are on LinkedIn, or if you are on Facebook, as you can I'll share those in the link. Please join us in the work that we're doing in building movements and transforming institutions. One final thing I want to say before I kick it over to Donna is that the CCA Alliance is now 51 members strong. SUNY joined the Alliance at the end of the year, becoming the 51st Alliance state. The Donna Linderman is no stranger to the CCA and has been involved in the body of work and just in student success for decades. So before I kick it off to Donna, I want to share a little bit about who she is and why it's so vitally important that you are all here today and what she's going to share with us. So as we dive into transforming student success at SUNY, I'm really thrilled to have Donna on the line because she is a true vanguard of student achievement and in many ways has been the guide for a lot of the student reforms that have happened across the nation. Her pivotal role in SUNY joining the Complete College America Alliance reflects her unwavering commitment to improving college completion rates, especially for students who face the greatest barrier. And I want to echo the words of SUNY Chancellor and former U.S. Secretary of Education John King, who said that Donna's leadership is instrumental in what he considers us tackling one of the towering equity issues of our time. He said, with her at the realm, we're not just anticipating necessarily a webinar or just a body of work. We're stepping into a powerhouse of ideas and actions that promise to bring a brighter and more powerful and equitable future for all of our students. So thank you for joining us. And I hope as we're thinking about all the things that are happening in the world, that this is something that inspires you to become part of this work and hear about what they are doing at SUNY as they embark on this greater vision. And so Donna, I kick it over to you.
Thank you so much, Meacie, and it's great to be here. Greetings, everyone. Really appreciate that warm opening. So as Meacie indicated, I'm Donna Linderman, Senior Vice Chancellor for Student Success at the State University of New York. I'm very excited to be here today to talk about some of the important work we are doing across SUNY to transform student success. So just a little bit about SUNY. We are the nation's largest comprehensive university system. Our impact across New York State and, frankly, the globe begins with our 64 institutions, which include research institutions, academic medical centers, liberal arts colleges, regional comprehensive colleges, community colleges, colleges of technology, and a fully online college. And we regularly share our message that there is a place for every New Yorker at SUNY, and that would really go for the entire country, if not the world. We really aim to ensure that all of our students, wherever they begin, are fully supported and guided at each step of their educational journey to realize their academic, personal, and professional goals with us at one or more of our campuses. So we serve nearly 370,000 students across our undergraduate and graduate programs, and another 1 million in registrations across our non-credit continuing education programs. So there really are lifelong opportunities for everyone at a SUNY campus. We really try to think holistically and strategically about how best to support our students, from creating a sense of belonging, from their first interaction with our institutions, their movement into and through many campuses and degree programs, and finally to them walking across the stage with a credential in hand, with a path into their desired careers mapped out. So upwards of 3 million SUNY alumni are located around the globe, all making their unique kind of impact on our world. So when Chancellor King joined SUNY in January of 2023, just a little over a year ago, he established 4 pillars to guide our work: transforming student success, embracing comprehensive diversity, equity, and inclusion, enhancing our research and scholarship, and supporting economic development and the upward mobility of our students. So these 4 pillars guide our collective work across our 64 campuses, but it's really this first pillar, the success of our students, that guides our work, and that is a force that is behind everything that I'm doing at SUNY with many colleagues across the system. So the Office of Student Success, which I'm very proud to lead, was created to integrate programs and initiatives that directly impact the student experience into one portfolio that can strategically and holistically consider how we can improve the higher education outcomes and experiences of our students at SUNY. So it's a large office that's comprised of multiple units that had never been linked previously before at the system level, where I'm located. And these include our Office of Enrollment Management, which includes financial aid, university life and opportunity programs, which includes student assembly, our longstanding educational opportunity program, disability services, military and veteran services, childcare, and basic needs initiatives. Our transformational initiatives, which include evidence-based initiatives going on across our colleges, focused on improving the student experience and the outcomes and completion rates of our students, supported by our generous state transformation fund, which I'm going to talk about in just a moment. An Office of Transfer and Articulation, which includes oversight of transfer policy and practice, as well as our new transfer task force, which is in about its 7th month of work. Our higher education in prison efforts, which supports 14 SUNY campuses working inside 24 state prisons, serving about 1,000 students a year and growing quite rapidly. And our Center for Professional Development, which is focused on training and professional development for staff, faculty, and leadership across SUNY. So just a few guiding principles that kind of knit these units together. The first is really considering the full student experience from recruitment through graduation in an integrated and supportive manner. Next is focusing strategically on improving enrollment, retention, and completion through integration of evidence-based models, identifying synergies and opportunities for collaboration between the system office and the campuses to address barriers and improve process and practice. Far too often we work in silos, and we want to make sure we're doing everything we can to work in a more organized and collaborative manner. And then finally, building rapport and working collaboratively with campuses to improve enrollment and address campus-specific needs and issues and any barriers that they are facing. So thanks to Governor Hochul, and the state legislature, we were very fortunate to receive an unprecedented investment to bolster system-wide and campus-specific initiatives, opening the doors to college for all New Yorkers. So in this past cycle, one of those investments was a historic $75 million SUNY Transformation Fund, which was allocated to support the adoption of evidence-based interventions. And the way the fund broke down is $60 million was allocated to be distributed to all of our campuses to use to adopt evidence-based practices to improve the student experience. $10 million was set aside for strategic economic development efforts, and $5 million for strategic enrollment initiatives. So I'm going to talk to you today about the $60 million that was allocated to our campuses, which we call our Campus Transformation Fund. So we went about this in a very strategic manner, so that this was not just a pot of money that was distributed, and hopefully at the end of the day, we saw some good practice. It was done in a very, very organized manner so that all campuses knew what their piece of this was and what allowable uses were, and very careful monitoring that's taking place and support from my office. So each campus received a set allocation from the $60 million fund. And last summer, my office conducted a very structured planning process that all campuses moved through so that they could access their piece of the allocation. So this included a series of webinars, provision of a planning template for all campuses to use, optional office hours with my team so that campuses could, carefully consider how they were going to use their funds. Campuses were really encouraged to determine where they had the most need and where they would be able to make the biggest impact on the students that they were serving. They were required to submit a 10% match to the allocation that they received from the fund. And they were asked to identify particular groups of students that they would be serving with their funds and specific interim metrics that they would all work towards. And also the agreement that all campuses would participate in any evaluation or research that we might put together. So here's how the fund broke down. And I think this is important to understand because we really wanted to guide the campuses to make decisions where they would have the greatest impact. That was kind of the thrust of this entire work. So campuses had to use at least 50% of their allocation for one of two areas, either enhancing economic mobility through preparation of employment in high demand fields, or increasing retention and completion through the agreement to replicate the evidence-based ASAP and ACE programs, which I'll talk about in just a couple of minutes. And then they could use up to 50% of their funds in one of three areas, addressing seamless transfer, operational efficiencies, and elimination of redundancies, ideally through multi-campus partnerships, and then delivering essential student supports to targeted underserved groups. And again, campuses did not have to sprinkle their money in all areas. They were asked to choose between the first two, where they could use all of their money in one or the other area, and not any of the options in group two, or they could divide and conquer if they felt that they could make a compelling case for how they would use the funds effectively within their campus. So we spent a lot of time during the planning process working with each campus to determine where their funds would be best used. So it was well worth the effort. So across the entire summer, we went through a process where we met with campuses, and this is how the eventual use of the funds shook out. 40 of our campuses opted into economic mobility initiatives. 25 stepped forward to replicate ASAP and ACE, and more to come on that in a bit. We had 13 community colleges agree to adopt ASAP, and 12 adopt the baccalaureate ACE model. 20 campuses are focused on enhancing transfer pathways with other campuses, 13 into streamlining operational efficiencies, and 31 focused on improving essential student supports. Here's just a couple of examples. So at Stony Brook, one of our university centers, they regularly have more demand than they have capacity in their computer science programs. So they were opted to expand capacity in that area by about a third with their funds. And Monroe Community College is developing and offering a very highly in demand training in green jobs energy in partnership with City College, which is part of the CUNY system where I came from. And courses and curricula that they're developing can be replicated across all other SUNY Community College campuses. In operational efficiencies, our friends at SUNY Optometry are supporting the establishment of a Doctor of Optometry extension program with Upstate Medical. And the goal is to increase access and the development of the optometry workforce in upstate New York, where there's a real shortage, through use of distance education by using faculty that are in place at the Manhattan SUNY Optometry location. Transfer Pathways Buffalo State is using some of their funding to create an advisor position that will work several days per week at Erie Community College to improve seamless transfer and early engagement of students at Erie who plan to transfer to Buffalo. In essential student support, SUNY Brockport's providing better outreach and engagement to veteran students to improve their retention. And finally, our friends at SUNY Delhi are using some of their money to create a textbook reserve program, which provides students with timely access to required course materials by removing that financial barrier connected with rising textbook and instructional materials costs. So it was a very robust process, and we're really pleased with the initiatives that our campuses are implementing. So I wanted to take just a couple of minutes to talk about the replication of ASAP and ACE, which our programs I was very proud to lead for many years at CUNY, and am honored to lead the replication work here at the SUNY system. So a total of 25 colleges, as mentioned, raised their hands to join the replication effort for this highly effective model. So as part of the Transformation Fund, all the colleges that raised their hands to replicate ASAP or ACE agreed to replicate the model with fidelity and agreed to bring in inaugural cohorts of 150 students across the spring and fall 2024 semesters. So a total of 150 students per campus. So as you probably know, ASAP and ACE are highly successful models from CUNY, which are focused on increasing timely graduation and have been found through rigorous evaluation, including RCTs, to dramatically improve retention and completion rates, narrow opportunity gaps, and realized cost efficiencies and benefits. Very proud that the program has been regularly written about. It's been replicated in other states. Here's just some links to various studies done on the program, both at CUNY, in Ohio, and most recently at our own Westchester Community College, where the MDRC is just finishing an RCT of their replication, as well as the baccalaureate version of ASAP called ACE, which just had an RCT completed at John Jay College. So highly effective model that we were delighted there was such a high take-up rate across our SUNY campuses to replicate. So just a little bit about our replication work. We are targeting students who are Pell eligible, who agree to enroll full-time in a major that the campuses select. And these are majors that can be completed in a timely manner, 3 years at the associate level for ASAP and 4 years for first-time freshmen, or 2 years for transfer students with an associate degree at the baccalaureate level. The program provides comprehensive resources and supports. This includes a cost of attendance award to offset the cost of going to college after tuition and fees and financial aid is applied, travel and textbook needs, very comprehensive wraparound supports in the form of personalized advisement, academic support and career development activities, and a cohort model where students really feel very much part of a community of learners supported by staff, and all undergirded with rigorous use of data for program management and evaluation purposes, as well as the training of and professional development for staff in the program. So these are the colleges that raised their hands. As you can see, it includes 13 community colleges and 12 of our state-operated or baccalaureate granting colleges. I was very pleased that we really are kind of represented across the entire state of New York. So students in all areas of the state have the opportunity to enroll in one of these programs. And we're delighted to be working closely with these campuses to support the launch of their programs. And very fortunate that the team I formerly worked with at CUNY has been able to provide very robust technical assistance to these campuses through the National Replication Collaborative that they lead. So all the campuses are receiving ongoing technical assistance from the CUNY team, as well as my office. All of our pilot programs just launched starting the spring semester with cohorts of 30 to 50 students, some a little bit more. The remainder of the students will be recruited for this fall. My office meets regularly with the campuses to provide resources and to support their launch. We're also replicating not just the model at the campus level, but the consortial model that exists at CUNY, where the system office, in this case, my office, and the campuses really work closely together to maximize program effectiveness. And we just started our data collection process this past month with all campuses. So very excited about our ASAP and ACE replication, and looking forward to sharing information on early successes there. And a real testament to Chancellor King's commitment to student success and bringing, one of the most recognized evidence-based programs in the country to bear at many of our campuses. Wanted to take a few minutes to talk about our transfer task force, which launched this past fall. So our task force was really an attempt to look at the transfer puzzle in the most comprehensive manner possible. I'm sure many folks on this call are aware that transfer is a multi-headed beast that has lots of different dimensions that impact students' ability to begin at a community college and then decide that they want to go to a baccalaureate college, a specific baccalaureate college, and then transfer effectively and seamlessly with minimal loss of credits, and easy movement into their program of choice. Fortunately, the issues that we face at SUNY are emblematic of issues faced across the country for students who wish to transfer. So we have, despite many years of good work, uneven transfer paths, lack of comprehensive kind of system-wide guidance on credit articulation, issues with technology, uneven advisement and admissions processes that are not always well coordinated or communicated with our students, to our students, insufficient and regularly available transfer student data and course articulation data, and then campus resource constraints, which can vary enormously. And so what we see at SUNY is very emblematic of national statistics, which is that the vast majority of our community college students indeed want to transfer, but 6 years after they begin their associate programs, a relatively modest number of students actually receive their bachelor's degree. And there's very dramatic kind of credit loss depending on the major the students are going into. So our transfer task force was really an attempt to pull together multiple actors from both the system and the campus level in different areas to try to tackle this work in a more comprehensive manner than had been done before, even though there had been much good work before I arrived here last year. So we created a structure where we pulled together folks from across the system into 5 working groups guided by a steering committee and informed by a president's advisory committee. And in all cases, these bodies are structured looking at the entire system. We wanted representation from all campus sectors, from the system office, and across the entire state. So no one region was overly represented. So we looked at the kind of comprehensive needs that were articulated as some of the barriers as we formed our working groups: advisement and transfer services, curriculum and transfer paths, which is really where that credit articulation piece lives, financial aid and student accounts, enrollment management, imagining transfer, something that really should be a conversation that begins when a student walks in the door of an associate granting college, so they can be guided effectively, and student records and data. So in all cases, we took an approach where we really wanted to think about representation. As I said, we're a very large system and a very large state. So when we decided to launch the transfer task force last summer, and the reason I'm giving you all this detail, I think you'll understand because of the comprehensive nature of transfer issues, it was really, really important that we had every region of the state represented and all of our campus sectors. So we solicited nominations from a variety of sources: campuses, system folks that work closely with campuses, asked for people to raise their hands if they heard about it and were interested. And we took a lot of time to kind of create a task force that includes over 100 people across those 5 working groups, the steering committee, and the president's advisory committee. So the response was very positive, and we have enormous collaboration underway across all of the task force dimension. The other piece that's quite unique and I'm very proud of is that the heads of our 2 faculty governance bodies, the University Faculty Senate and the Faculty Council of the Community Colleges, are also on the steering committee and the working groups. In fact, I co-chair the Transfer Task Force Steering Committee with the president of the UFS. And we really kind of carefully looked at the composition of every element of the task force so we could have this kind of cross-sector input into the work that we were generating. The work groups have a system and a campus leader for each one. So there's always that system and campus representation and dialogue. The work group leads meet regularly as a group. We also pull them up into the steering committee meetings to talk about what's going on, and then we look at work in writing. So it's as comprehensive a structure as I have ever been part of in my many years, and I'm very proud of that. And these were a couple of the guiding principles that we used. The first was really this idea that we were aiming at maximizing credit acceptance and program applicability. that we were aiming for clarity and transparency for students and their families about what the transfer process was and where resources and supports could be accessed, and to ensure that anyone that's working with a student on transfer was fully supported and had the necessary tools to do that work as effectively as possible. Here's our progress to date. As mentioned, last summer, we started with the formation. We were charged and officially launched in September. The working groups and the steering committee started meeting on a regular basis. Steering committee would push information up to our president's advisory committee for feedback. And we generated an interim report in December, January, for which we received feedback from our chancellor and our president's advisory group. We took that feedback back to the working groups, and now we're working towards synthesizing some of the preliminary emergent themes that came out of that group into a final report that we'll be delivering in May, June to our chancellor and our board of trustees. Thought you might be interested in just seeing a couple of the emergent themes that came out of the working groups. And what was interesting is there was a lot of synergy across working groups. So everyone saw each other's work. And as we pulled folks up into the steering committee, there was immediately some linkages across working groups. So the first was the idea of early student tracking, that we should be able to identify students who aim to transfer at the earliest possible juncture in their associate trajectory, so that we can work with them as closely as possible and make sure they're guided effectively. Next was this notion of cross-institutional advisement, and that this should really be a shared responsibility, especially between campuses that have strong sending and receiving patterns. And we're very pleased that through the Transformation Fund, we saw a lot of kind of budding partnerships where there was an interest in investing in this notion of shared responsibility at the advisement level. Next was this notion of data sharing improvements. There was a lot of fractured systems going on, particularly for course equivalencies. So we have a separate track of work where we're creating universal transfer equivalency tool, course equivalency tool, so that data will be more readily available. Next was this idea of our transfer paths being improved in terms of communication and awareness. SUNY has a number of transfer paths where students, at least on paper, should be able to move in a 2+2 manner between campuses, but they're not as widely communicated and refreshed as they should be. So the importance of investing in kind of constantly going back and looking at that work and making sure it's up to date and that as many people as possible know about it. And then in terms of governance and engagement, while shared governance is obviously a very sacred tenet of campus work, we realized as a large system there was an importance of thinking about governance regarding transfer policy and practice at the system level. So we have an emerging body of work about what that might look like as a shared responsibility between system and the campuses. And then finally, addressing transfer technology disparities, especially at some of our smaller colleges that don't have the resources to really keep their systems as updated as possible. So I'm going to stop there. I know that was a lot of information, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen and welcome the chance to have a discussion or any questions that might be coming up. And Meacie, you let me know how we're going to handle the Q&A and discussion portion.
Yep. So I did get some anonymous questions on the side, but we'll definitely encourage folks to put in your questions in the chat, or if you want to raise your hand and I'll take you off mute if you want to speak to them. But one of the first questions that came up when you were delving into talking about the different areas that institutions could choose was, and if the institutions had the information to make those types of decisions. So so folks were wondering about if they were looking to do something in their region or within their state, how were you able to provide support? What did that look like?
So that is a great question, and I appreciate it very much. So as part of our planning process, we created a planning template and we had a series of webinars. So everything that we put out in writing also included kind of fact sheets with examples of evidence-based practices in each of those 5 areas. So I'll just, for example, pick the ASAP and ACE1. We put together materials on what the model was, what the evidence was for that. And then within each area, we did the same thing. We kind of created fact sheets with links to actual kind of evidence and research and evaluation within each of these areas. So we weren't just tossing out, hey, this sounds like a good idea, but here are some examples of evidence-based practice within this menu area of the process. So through the webinar, we went through that. We pushed all that information out in writing to the colleges. And then they also had the option of plugging into office hours. And I was really happy how many colleges took us up on that. And I'm also not shy. I worked the phones and told, if I didn't know people, I would say, hey, if you're interested in any of these areas, what's jumping out and would you like to schedule some office hours? So we had a lot of we had to add hours, and extend them we thought we'd kind of wrap those up in the month of July, but they went into August because people really took us up on that and engaged in conversation. So again, in writing, in webinars, and then conversation, we went through kind of options for campuses.
I'm gonna pause in case someone has a follow-up from that answer. All right, so another one that came through was about the transfer. Well, so there's two more questions coming up, so I'll do the first one. If institutions, do they have an ability to go back and do one that they did not select, right? So is this just a point in time, or when or how could they pivot if they decided to change, or if they decided they want to come on to work on some of those areas? How does that work?
Within the transformation fund. Okay. So what we really, by doing a pretty robust upfront planning process, we really hoped campuses would think long and hard about where they could use their funds and to really put together a plan for the use of those funds that had been well thought through. And we went back and forth sometimes if there wasn't enough information or we thought that their initial kind of plan wasn't as detailed as it should be. So what we don't want is people kind of just, pivoting back and forth between ideas because this sounds good or we heard somebody down the road is doing something. So we tried to really provide several months of planning so that campuses would make decisions that were informed by their strategic plans at their campuses, what some of their unique needs were, and to put the money where they thought it could really be used to best effect. We are following up regularly with them on how are things going in terms of your use of funds, your, planning. We have this very detailed matrix of where they said they would be at certain junctures. And my office is following up with them. How are you doing here? We have it all kind of on a timed basis. If someone is struggling in some way, they need to make some adjustments within their plan. We definitely will work with them and already have. We just did our first set of reporting about 6 weeks ago. So some people needed to make some tweaks or some adjustment. It was really more about timing than deciding to kind of, we have not received any requests so far about making radical changes kind of across menu areas. We do plan to do a robust, end of first year discussion with campuses, but we tried to do as much upfront as possible so that we wouldn't see a lot of kind of bounce between areas. And if something wasn't well thought out in the first plan version that we got, we really worked with campuses to think through this. Like, is this really what you want to do? Can you give us more detail here? And if they weren't able to, that was really the juncture for them to make some changes. So we're hoping that, across this kind of 2 to 3 year process of them using these funds, that they'll kind of dig in and refine what they said they wanted to do rather than just kind of jettisoning something and moving on. If an additional pot of money becomes available, that would be more the opportunity to kind of move into different areas. Oh, you're muted, Meacie.
Thank you. I'm not surprised this one came into chat. How large of a team do you have on this project?
It's really small. There's we're really kind of a core team of I really only have 2 dedicated people working on this transformation fund, but across the entire office of student success, it's about 70 people, but that includes everyone in enrollment management, and university life. So it's across the entire unit. It's a big team working on the transformation fund. It's really a team of about 3 or 4 people.
And then the follow-up from that, the ask is, so much of what we hear and what is felt across our campuses is that folks have a lot going on personally and professionally. So in terms of getting that task force, the transfer task force together and selecting in the nomination, folk, the commenter here mentioned, of course, initiative fatigue, but then also in terms of just the regular folks always getting tapped. So how
Mhm.
in different ways too, and then not even just having space and time to be able to do the work.
Yep.
So just wondering how you were able to bring folks together. What did that look like? And what was actually the reality of how that is coming together for you?
That is an excellent question, and it's a very thoughtful question. So we could have done this very fast. We could have just put out a call and said, presidents, everyone give us a name or two. But we didn't want to do that. We really wanted to put together a truly cross-functional group where we had folks from different areas, advisement, registrars, CAOs, CEOs, chief student affairs officers. We wanted the kind of the full range advisement, every area kind of represented, folks that work kind of, with data on a day-to-day basis. So we approached it in we let people know we were forming the task force, we started asking for nominations, and we kind of put together a matrix of the names we were hearing, being mindful of the fact that some people are overtaxed. And we looked to see if we, had broad representation across the state and across all of our campus sectors. It was really important to us. We also wanted kind of broad representation demographically. We really wanted to ensure that this was kind of as representative as possible of the university. And then, being obviously very respectful of our campus leadership, we reached out to presidents, and if it wasn't a vice president, kind of the reporting vice president, to say, this is a name that's come up, would you be open to this person being on the task force? And in some cases, folks, and we said, if that's not possible, please let us know. A few people did come back to us and say, this person is too taxed right now. I have them on this or on that, but here's an alternative. So it was very much a conversation and a dialogue. And I think over time people heard about it. And then we had a few people say, hey, I want to be on the task force too. So it was wonderful to see that it kind of took on kind of a life of its own, in terms of folks saying, I want to be part of it. But again, we tried to really, that chart I put up, that was pie graphs, we really tried to be very mindful of that. We didn't want any one sector, campus sector, system, or individual campus overrepresented. So we tried to always kind of keep that as our backdrop.
And then there's the questions keep coming in. So I won't to them about student involvement and then also technology, right? So much has been said about tech, AI, and all of these other things. So how does that come into scope, and how is your office looking at that in combination with the work that you're doing?
So I'll speak about kind of technology within the transfer task force first. So big system, not everyone is on the same kind of degree audit or student information management system. And I think SUNY, like many large systems, went through the process of, do we compel everyone to be in the same system? Or, do we accept the reality that differentiation is going to exist, and trying to get people, is the effort worth it to yank things away from campuses where it may be working really effectively? So I think SUNY went down that path and discussed that, well before I got here. And where we landed was, it makes much more sense to utilize 21st century technology and to get systems to talk to each other through use of APIs. So as part of the work we're doing in the transfer space, we're creating a universal course equivalency tool that can pull existing data, regardless of which student information system a campus might be using, so that we can create a common space for all campuses, prospective students and current students, to look to see how do courses transfer across SUNY. And this has been a real game changer. So the fact that we, weren't going to spend several years trying to get everyone to be in the same box, rather get the boxes to talk to each other, has been fantastic. So we've been going through a process right now of animating that. person on my team who's wildly talented is working with our colleagues in the a center that provides support to all campuses that are in the Banner system to adopt a tool, the test tool, transfer equivalency self-service, and then to use that to create kind of data that everyone can access in this universal equivalency tool, which would be online very, very shortly. And we're working with our partners at Ellucian who support this work, who have made this possible. So we're really proud of that and thinking that that is a better way of thinking about kind of data sharing issues, not just in the transfer space, but potentially in other spaces. I'll just give you one other example. ASAP is very data-driven, and ACE are very data-driven programs. So we've started this data collection process where everyone's working towards common benchmarks in terms of enrollment, course, credits attempted and earned, and contact with students. So we've just launched our data collection process from all the colleges. We're pushing data up to a team in my office that will then put into a common database that will be ramping up and out for program management purposes, and then our eventual evaluation agenda. So we tried to make it something where colleges didn't have to do double data entry. We helped everyone create kind of an extract from whatever system they were using. So if they're on Starfish or Navigate, they can continue to use that in their interactions with their ASAP or ACE students. But then when we do our data collection, which is on a monthly basis, there's an export feature that can be used so that people don't have to go separately enter it into another database. So those are just a few examples of things we're doing. And then we're just starting to have conversations that are very much being led by the Office of the Provost about use of AI for a more personalized tutoring to allow for kind of more differentiated instruction at the course level, at the class level. This is very near and dear to my heart as a former teacher and faculty member. So our provost is just starting to lead those conversations, and I'm very excited to be part of those. Kind of looking at the Khan Academy model, if anyone's familiar with the Khanmigo model, that's getting a lot of attention right now.
Well, it's exciting too, because the Office of Education Technology has signaled that a lot of the work to be done there in our universities would go towards what you just mentioned. Okay, so there's one last and final question, unless someone pops up. So it doesn't have to be for all of you on the line if you have some additional questions. Not sure what this one is aiming at, but it may just be because there's so many things out there. So how do you prioritize what actions to take first when there are so many good ideas in place, but can't be done at once?
That is the $1,000,000 question, and I will always answer that question the same way, which is there are a ton of good ideas out there, but there are very few that have really rigorous, solid evidence and data behind them. So I think it is first and foremost absolutely critical that you wherever you're sitting on a campus, in a system office, at a major funding organization, what is the problem you're trying to solve for? Like making sure that there's clarity about the issue that you want to address, and then looking at practices that can say that they've actually addressed that question and have the evidence to back it up. And the more rigorous the evidence, the better. Now, I'm not saying random assignment studies are the be all and end all. They are extremely important. So if you have anything that has RCT data behind it, that's great. But there's all kinds of other rigorous evaluation that can be done, quasi-experimental comparison group evaluation, a really rigorous qualitative analysis, getting actual feedback from students, from staff and faculty on what works. So I would always say the same thing. There's a lot of good ideas, but when you start to peel the curtains back and look to see who has real evidence that this actually has worked, and hopefully not just in one location, but in multiple locations. And that's something that one of the reasons why we really leaned in on ASAP and ACE is these were models that did not just work in one place, not at one college, not at one system, but in many states, and had really solid evidence to demonstrate this was a transferable model. So I would say that is the most important thing. Those two questions: what is the problem you're solving for, and where are the best examples of evidence to suggest that's the way you should go?
Thank you so much, Donna. Well, I don't see any more questions in the chat. So I think at this point, if there's anything, I think the bigger question is, as you are continuing your body of work, where and how can folks continue to learn and follow along in terms of what you're learning, and what they may be able to apply to their campuses, their systems, or their states?
So, well, first, we are so thrilled to be part of Complete College America as the 51st Alliance member. So we definitely will be pushing up, and CCA will be helping us in our, specifically in our transformation fund work. And then when our recommendations from our task force come out in the transfer space as well. So we'll certainly be pushing up information through CCA. We have a website, SUNY Office of Student Success. Right now it's kind of fairly bare bones. It kind of gives the big picture of what we're doing. We will be updating that with the outcomes of any of the work as we evaluate, get new information. The team that I have, we're small but mighty. We're very entrepreneurial. We're always trying to keep our ear to the ground about where there could be additional supports, looking to bring in extra money. So for example, in ASAP, we were fortunate to raise some additional monies to support student parents in our ASAP programs, because that can be a real barrier, childcare and the ability to take classes year round. So we're always looking to kind of raise additional money. So anything like as information like that comes online, we will be updating our websites, and making the rounds of conferences and pushing information out. So I would just say monitor our website, and CCA will certainly work with you to make sure information on what we're doing is shared regularly.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Donna, for what has been a very informative 50 minutes. As Donna noted, there's going to be additional learnings that will be on the SUNY webpage, which I just shared there. We'll continue to share the learnings that happens at SUNY as well through webinars, blog posts, podcasts, etc. So continuing to be excited about this work and thrilled to have them as our 51st member. And then the last thing I'll add too is, again, if you're not familiar with Complete College America or you haven't joined us, feel free to reach out to us. I'm Fairfax at completecollege.org. If you want to learn more about the ways that you can get connected to this body of work and to the body of work that Donna is stewarding forward as well. So all that to say, Donna, thank you so much for your expertise. Thank you for your care for our students. Thank you for all the learnings that come with it. And we look forward to having you on another webinar.
Thank you so much. Good to see you again. And thanks to everyone. I can't see you, but I feel you. So everyone, good luck with what you're doing in your day to day.
We have some class and hearts coming up.
Love that.
Out there. Thank you all. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.